welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are back with another weapon breakdown, and as you can tell by the title of this one, we are finally covering the BSV-M. This one has been a long time coming. I do apologise for the wait on these new weapons as they get added to the game. Obviously this one is nearly 4 months old now, so it's hardly a new weapon at this point, but the way the sim.gg website has to update does mean that it takes quite a bit of time to gather all of the data needed for the updated stats on the site, and without those stats I essentially can't make these videos, so apologies for that. But as soon as these stats become available for any new weapons, I will be sure to get them out as soon as I can. Before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any upcoming Battlefield 2042 content. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into my weapon breakdown for the BSV-M. So the BSV-M is obviously classed as a marksman rifle, and this was unlockable via the Season 1 Battle Pass, or if you did miss that Battle Pass, then you can unlock it via assignments on the collection screen. It has a magazine size of 10+1 in the chamber, and it fires at a rate of 399 rounds per minute, which is the second fastest rate of fire in that class. Now for its reload times, it takes 2.7 seconds to reload, and that includes both the tactical reload and the empty reload times, as they are both the same for some reason. As for the velocity, it centers ammunition downrange at 790 meters per second, which is the second slowest out of all of the marksman rifles currently in the game, but only by a tiny bit in most cases, so it's almost on par with those other weapons. Now getting into the more detailed stats for the BSV-M, keep in mind that these values are all based off of body shots, and when it comes to the BSV-M, headshots have a 2.2 times multiplier, so any value that you see in these graphs are just slightly more than doubled when you land them to the head rather than the torso or the limbs. So for example, 10 damage to the body would result in 22 damage to the head. The BSV-M deals 35 damage per bullet up to 49 meters, and then at 50 meters and beyond it drops down to 26 damage per shot, so it has a relatively smooth drop off there. Now keep in mind this is for the high power rounds that you start off with, which have different values than the close combat rounds that a lot of people use as well. So here I've actually tested the close combat rounds myself, and you can see the comparison with the close combat rounds dealing 21 damage up to 29 meters, then between 30 and 74 meters it'll deal 18 damage, and then from 75 meters and beyond it will deal 15 damage per bullet. Now I've included the close combat just for the damage stats, but not for the bullets to kill or time to kill, just to give you guys a quick glimpse at the difference in damage. But keep in mind the close combat rounds do have a faster rate of fire, so it's actually not a drastic difference when it comes to the time to kill. Comparatively, here are all the other weapons in the same class, and you can see that it is roughly in the middle of all those weapons when it comes to the damage over distance with those standard high power rounds. As for the bullets that it takes to kill over distance, it takes 3 shots to kill up to 49 meters, and then at 50 meters or beyond it'll take 4 shots to the body to kill an enemy. Again, here are those comparisons with the other weapons in the marksman rifle class. Once again, it is pretty much right in the middle there. Lastly, moving on to the time to kill over distance, it kills in 300 milliseconds up to 49 meters, and then from 50 meters and beyond it will take 451 milliseconds to kill. Again, here are those comparisons with the other weapons, and it is a little bit hard to gauge because the others are far more accurate, but it does hang in there pretty well if you can hit most of your shots. Now moving on, we have the recoil pattern for the BSV-M, and as you can see it has some really solid recoil with the high power rounds. It is extremely accurate, and it has really easy to manage recoil, which makes it very fun to use. You can also see the recoil here with the close combat rounds, and although it is obviously a lot more due to the rate of fire, it's still got some really easy to handle recoil, and when you're using this at close to mid range and you're tapping the trigger, it is still very accurate for the most part. Now moving on, I've crafted 2 different loadouts that I often like to use on the BSV-M. I usually do 3 of course, but with this one there really is only the need for 2. So if you're not 100% sure on what attachments to use, then hopefully this can give you guys a good starting point, and obviously these can be slightly altered and adjusted to your own preferences. The first loadout that I wanted to cover is the close range build, and this one is pretty much the default loadout for this weapon in terms of being the one that I use in most situations, while the next loadout is more for just those sort of long range engagements. Be sure to use this build in the full auto fire mode, as otherwise it definitely is not that useful compared to the next build. For the sight I use the K8 Hollow, as it is very well suited for close quarters. For the ammo I use the close combat rounds, which slightly reduce the effectiveness at range while increasing the rate of fire and giving the BSV-M a 30 round magazine as well. For the underbarrel I use the LWG grip, as that is just the all round when it comes to the grips, and then lastly for the barrel I use the shortened suppressor, which just increases your rate of fire slightly and is obviously well suited to those close quarters engagements. This essentially turns the BSV-M into an SMG, and it's super fun to use with this build. Obviously only having 30 round mags is still a bummer for those close quarters weapons, but overall it is still a very solid loadout to run. Now moving on to the second loadout that I wanted to cover, this one is the long range build, and exactly as it sounds, this one just maximizes the long range strength of the BSV-M. For the sight, I use the PSO-1M3 scope, which is the 5x scope that was added to the game with the BSV-M. It's got a really nice clear sight, and that added range makes it insanely good at mid to long range. For the ammo, I use the high power extended rounds, as they are just the best for long range, and then obviously the extended mag is always handy. For the underbarrel, I use the LWG grip again, and then lastly for the barrel, I use the extended suppressor, as this just increases the velocity of the weapon yet again at the cost of a slightly slower rate of fire. Like I said, this build is definitely going to make the weapon more effective at range, and it's honestly almost a semi-automatic sniper at this point, so you can see now why I only need 2 loadouts for this weapon. The first one is for close to mid-range, and then this loadout has the long-range engagements covered, so between the two, you're pretty much never going to need any other loadouts. So that is pretty much it for the BSV-M, guys. Personally, I really enjoy using this one, and it's no doubt one of my most used weapons during Season 1 and even the start of Season 2 as well, so hopefully this guide helps you guys when it comes to the stats and the loadouts. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, then consider subscribing, and if you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.